What is up, awesome people of the internet, guys? There's been so much WNBA content that I've been putting out. I got a lot of news regarding free agency, more news coming up soon, but I wanted to get back to women's college basketball because that's what we're in. That's the season that we're in, is women's college basketball. I want to talk about Georgia Amoore. Georgia Amoore is a draft prospect for 2025. She had the option to enter the draft last year, decided to hold off for another year, follow her head coach, Kenny Brooks, over from Virginia Tech to Kentucky. And I think that this was the best move for her. Now, initially, when she did announce that she was transferring, I was a little worried about Georgia Amoore being able to handle the SEC, but y'all, looks like she's handling it just fine. And that's because yesterday, Georgia Amoore dropped 43 points, a Kentucky record tie-in performance, and got a statement win over a top 15 team. Now, let's get into her performance over Oklahoma. All right, so Kentucky was ranked number 12 as of yesterday in the nation, and Oklahoma was ranked 13th. And this game was supposed to be a tough SEC battle that, in my opinion, was supposed to be dominated by Oklahoma's Reagan Beers. But Georgia Amoore made it her personal showcase in that game. She dropped 43 points, shooting an insane 15 of 22 from the field. She was lights out from deep, 7 of 12 from the three, and nearly automatic from the free throw line. She ended up hitting 6 of 8 of her free throws. And also, she was passing that ball as well. Ultimately, Georgia finished with 8 assists in that game and only 2 turnovers. This was not just a great performance. It was a historic performance. Georgia Amoore tied the Kentucky record for the most points in a single game, matching Jennifer O'Neal and Ryan Howard. And she also became the first Kentucky player to score 40 or more points since Ryan Howard did it in 2020. Now, guys, if you are in the same conversation as Ryan Howard, you big time. Like that is a big time compliment, because Ryan Howard was phenomenal when she was in college. And if you're talking about Ryan Howard, you're doing something really special. So, like, Georgia Amoore has been doing her thing. And guys, the Kentucky Wildcats, they kind of needed every single thing that Georgia had to offer and more. Because they barely beat Oklahoma. This was not a blowout at all. This was a back and forth game throughout. 95 Kentucky, 86 to Oklahoma. And it wasn't just Georgia Amoore. I do have to give a huge shout out to Clara Strack, who also followed the Virginia Tech to Kentucky route. Also, Deja Lawrence did her thing as well. So Clara Strack ended up with 19 points and 6 rebounds, and Deja Lawrence ended up with 14 points and 4 assists. And guys, that really helped to move the needle for Kentucky to get them the extra step above Oklahoma. And guys, beyond the box score, Georgia Amoore was just critical when it came to leadership on the court. Oklahoma made several runs, especially in that second half, cutting the lead down to single digits, but every time they did, Georgia Amoore had an answer. And guys, whether it was draining a three, making the right pass, or knocking down some free throws, she kept Kentucky in control of the game despite the runs that Oklahoma tried to make. And guys, that's really what makes Georgia Amoore special. She is someone who can score in bunches, and when she is focused, you can't really stop her. You can't really stop her because she can pass and she can score. And she took over the game when she needed to. And that's what matters the most, right? When you can step up when your team needs you. And if you guys have followed women's college basketball for a while, you already know Georgia Amoore's name. But for those who do not know, let's talk about who she is and like why she's even at Kentucky. So Georgia Amoore is a 5'6" point guard who has spent 4 years at Virginia Tech. She was there for a long time. She ended up following her head coach, Kenny Brooks, over from Virginia Tech to Kentucky. And at Virginia Tech, Georgia Amoore built an incredible career. Last season, she averaged 18.8 points a game, 6.8 assists per game, leading the ACC in assists, and was 4th nationally in that marker as well. She was a shooter, right? 41% from the field, 85% from the free throw line. She was someone who can knock down threes left and right, made the second most three-pointers in the ACC conference. And last year, her and Elizabeth Kitley helped to lead Virginia Tech to a very, very successful season, ultimately with their season culminating with their first ever ACC tournament title in Virginia Tech history. That was in 2023, and their first regular season title in 2024 for the ACC. And in terms of Georgia's individual accolades, well, it's kind of stacked, right? She's a two-time ACC first-team selection player. She's an All-American. She was a finalist for the Nancy Lieberman Award that goes to the best point guard in the country. But after 4 years at Virginia Tech, Georgia Amoore decided to transfer to Kentucky following Kenny Brooks and several of her teammates. And initially, I had some concerns about Georgia Amoore in the SEC. I did. The SEC is a lot tougher of a conference. Like their phrase says, it just means more. And there's a lot more toughness. And that means that point guards especially, you gotta kind of get your weight up. And I had some worries about whether or not Georgia Amoore could kind of rise to the occasion. And honestly, my worries are kind of done. Like I'm not worried, right? I was worried about is she going to be able to maintain her level of play. And to be fair, there have been some games where Georgia has particularly struggled to score. I'm thinking about that like Alabama game. That's probably the most recent game in my head right now. And also the Texas A&M game as well, struggled to score a little bit. But the thing that I've really been impressed with by Georgia is even if her shot isn't falling, she still finds ways to impact the game and still finds ways to make herself being on the court still a net positive. And I think that's a huge W for her. And I think she is playing in a way that allows WNBA teams to be like, maybe we will take a chance on you. Maybe we will, because you've shown that you can kind of deal with a little bit more physicality in the SEC. You've shown that you can deal with a change in your environment, right? And so I like it. Again, she is short, and so that's still something that's severely going to hurt her. If Georgia Amoore was 6 foot tall and she was putting up these same numbers, lottery pick. But the problem is she's 5'6", very, very short. And so when you're that short, you kind of have to be excellent to really get a chance in the WNBA, because the WNBA really does emphasize taller players. And so that's something that, you have to keep in mind. And because of her height, not because of her play, but because of her height, I think she will ultimately end up as like a early second round pick, maybe late first round pick. The way she's playing, I think she is kind of moving on up the draft board a little bit. Because she's showing that she can take the SEC. But we will see Kentucky play South Carolina soon, and so that's going to be like the biggest test, is how in the world does Georgia play against South Carolina? How does she play against LSU? Like, I think those are going to be some really, really good tests for her, and definitely matches to watch. So with this win against Oklahoma, Kentucky ultimately improved to 19-2 on the season and continues to look like a legit player in the SEC. Georgia Amoore has proven that she can step up against some top competition, and if she continues to play like this, hey, who knows ultimately where Kentucky might end up in the NCAA tournament. The Wildcats have a tough schedule ahead, but one thing's for certain, if Georgia Amoore is locked in, they got a chance. All right, guys, what do y'all think about how Georgia Amoore is playing this season? Are y'all liking it? Are y'all not liking it? Have you been impressed with how she's been able to handle the SEC? Let me know. I have, but maybe I'm off on that. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, and tell a friend that Quita Loves Sports is talking about women's basketball. Till next time, guys. Bye bye.